Here's the concept. Trajectory is the common argument against shooting heavier arrows. So I wanted to find out just how bad the trajectory would be. I used a 385 grain Victory 3D HV going 304 feet per second. A 600 grain Day 6 arrow going 275 feet per second. And then, just because I had one lying around, a 900 grain Black Eagle Rampage shot out of my Prime Nexus 4, which has 60-pound limbs. In a world obsessed with speed, I'm almost ashamed to say how slow it's going. Here's the setup. Place a target at the desired distance and shoot a bullseye to make sure I'm dialed in. Then place a large piece of paper halfway between me and the target to capture the arrow at its highest point in flight, allowing me to measure the apex. I visually line up the bottom of the paper to the horizontal line on the target. The camera you're seeing won't always reflect this view. There's an easy way to do this at home without paper, but it's not as interesting to watch on video. I'll tell you how to do it at the end. I started at 20 yards and shot 10-yard increments until I got to 70 yards. Here are my findings. Now I get to do a weird, awkward thing that I haven't done before, where I interject into a video and I say, but first. Before we move on, I wanted to tell you about Mere Mortal Archery, which is a company that my wife and I started that is going to donate 100% of the profits from every piece of merchandise sold on the website to law enforcement officers, first responders, and military folks that were injured in the line of duty. We're trying to expand the archery family, and we feel like this is a great way for us to be able to give back. Right now there are hats available on the website. I don't think we sold out. It depends on when you're watching this video. I'm working on getting shirts back in stock. Thank you very much for supporting. We're gonna wait until you subscribe. I'm not gonna be one of those channels that just asks flippantly and moves on. Dave, I can see you. Your wife Karen is telling you to like and subscribe to the channel. If you're Dave and your wife is Karen and you just pooped in your pants a little bit, shoot me a message on Instagram. I'll send you something. Back to the video. Remember earlier in the video when I did the thing where I told you about the Mere Mortal Archery stuff, but then I just kind of kept holding the hat out of frame? This is one of the hats, and it's super cool. And then this is one of the new shirts that we just got in. This is Espresso Brown. We got some more black ones, we got some more green ones, legit. Super cool. I'm super excited about this next round. We're about to add everything to the website. It should be up right now, actually, because I'm not going to drop this video until we get that in. I don't care if you shoot a heavy arrow or a light arrow. I just want people to kind of understand what happened. So let me tell you about the flaws in this test. I used a 75-pound bow to shoot the 600 grain arrow, and I used a 72-ish pound bow to shoot the 385 grain arrow. So the feet per second are accurate, 275-ish and 304. Those are the accurate feet per second. But I get a lot of benefit because I'm a 30-inch draw. I can get an arrow to go a lot faster. There's a lot of people that are going to shoot a 600 grain arrow and it's going to go 250 feet per second. That changes things for you. Here's a way to kind of do this at home if you're curious about the actual height the apex of the arrow, how much it has to climb in order to hit that same dot on the target. Say you step back to 40. So go back to 40, get dialed in exactly how you, like just hitting perfect, dead money in the center. And then walk up to 20. Use your 40 pin, aim exactly at the same dot, and let her rip. And then go measure how high that arrow hits in your target. It's a significantly simpler way of doing it than what I was doing with the paper, but the paper was kind of cool. The visuals didn't turn out quite as neat as I was hoping. Like, I hope you were going to be able to see the arrow going through it a little bit more. And none of that was in order. I just kind of threw it in there because I knew that the actual numbers were going to be the thing that was more important. The other flaw in this test is I'm still a human being shooting those. But if you really want to be a super nerd, go look online. There's plenty of like ballistics trajectory charts that you can go look at that are, you know, yeah, super, you can nerd out if you want to. The light arrow that I shot climbed 1.75 inches in order to get to the target at 20. And the heavy arrow climbed basically an inch more than that to hit at 20. If you're running into clearance issues where you're shooting through gaps that you need that type of clearance at 20 yards, sure, go shoot the light arrow. That's totally fine. Go do that. But I think this is probably a little eye-opening. Like, an arrow that weighs almost twice as much requires 1 inch more climb to hit at 20 yards. Let's move up to 30. Light arrow required 3 inches of climb at the apex, and the heavy arrow was 4 3/4. So less than 5 inches at 30 yards. So you think about it, if you're a whitetail guy sitting in a tree where basically everything's clear, the only thing that we're arguing about at this point, to me, in my mind, is speed to target, which we're not going to talk about in this video, but it's pretty dang easy to calculate and figure out, like, how fast is the 304 feet per second arrow making it compared to the 275 feet per second arrow. 40 and 50 yards to me is where it really kind of starts to separate. The light arrow compared to the heavy arrow, it was basically like 5 inches and change compared to 10 inches and change. So now we're legitimately getting into stuff like where you're on some of those, like a Total Archery Challenge style, you know, shot where you're going through some stuff that's a little bit thicker, or very viable shots on an elk where you're in some thick stuff. And maybe it would be handier to have an arrow that's only climbing 5.5 inches versus 10 inches at the middle of that shot. 50 yards, it gets even worse. The light arrow was 8 3/4 inches, and the heavy arrow was 15 inches. So, yay to yay. We're getting a little bit bigger now. So the interesting thing about the way these arrows work is the heavier arrow is actually losing speed slower than the arrow going faster. If you want to look up the physics of it, I don't want to explain it all here, but the heavier arrow, if you get a projectile that's heavy enough going fast enough, it's going to hold its speed better than a lighter projectile going fast. Some of the shots where you're, you know, launching it over a branch and the arrow is going to fall in there, knowing that kind of at your midpoint, if you're at 50 yards, you can clear something that's a foot higher than the target and drop it in there. Maybe you don't want to do that on an animal, but just kind of, again, the further understanding of the gear is so fascinating to me. And 20, 30, and maybe even 40 yards, I have a hard time not shooting that faster arrow. There's like no conclusion. There is no like, you should do this because of this. I just think that the information is interesting and I wanted to mess with it. If it's something you're curious about, go set up your target at home and try exactly what I was talking about. Just be careful that you don't shoot way over the target, because literally if you go back to 70 and shoot and then come up and all of a sudden you're shooting 3 feet higher, if you don't have like a giant bulldog target or a huge block target, you will launch your arrow over your bag. Subscribe to the channel, push the like button so that YouTube is friendly to us and that the channel can make more money that we can donate to get more people into the wonderful sport of archery. Yes, I am going to start asking more and more in the videos, like 7 times in the future. It's going to literally just be like every minute I'm going to talk about it. Thank you for watching. I'm Brandon McDonald.